I'm Debbie Peverill, and you're listening to the weekly tip from basicboardgovernance.ca. I am doing a series of tips on things that should be in your bylaws. Last week was the first one of the series. This is the second one. So what we're talking about today are several things. Whether or not your organization is going to be allowed to borrow money, whether or not your organization is going to be audited by an official professional accountant, and all the things around the directors. So let's start with the directors. Your bylaws should say how many there can be. You can say between 8 and 12, or you can say there must be 12. Better to have a range. Is there anything that your directors have to have, such as a geographic representation, or do they have to be from a certain profession in order to serve on your board? You need to lay that down in your bylaws, what requirements there are for being a board member. What is the term? 2-year terms, 3 years term? Is there a limit? Can they serve 3-year terms or not? You're to set up those term limits. Do you want to have any way of removing a director? Of course you do. And then you need to establish the criteria for which you would remove a board member. Why would that happen? Who has to decide about that? And of course, how did they get elected? Typically, board members are elected at an annual general meeting of the members. So you want to establish that. The borrowing resolution, that for a not-for-profit, typically not-for-profits aren't allowed to borrow money. That's kind of a best practice, that if you don't have a guaranteed way of making money, you probably shouldn't borrow any, because how do you know you're going to be able to pay it back? You can decide that though in your bylaws. And the last one is about the auditing. When you're dealing with not-for-profits, it is more likely that you're going to want to have a professional auditor, because it's not your money typically that you're dealing with. So the members are going to want to know that the directors are spending it correctly. So an audit is more likely. For a corporation that is owned by one person, it's unlikely there's any reason for an audit. So your bylaws can establish that. Do you have an audit? Do you borrow money? How do you get directors? How are they elected? Who do they have to be? And how do you get rid of them?